following up on a homeless shelter that opened up in southeast Portland about 2.5 months ago.
Now, the shelter is in the residential neighborhood of Mill Park on southeast 122nd Avenue. Our investigative reporter Gabrielle Carroll covered the story from the beginning, including neighborhood concerns. So the question, how has it been going so far?
Well, there are a number of neighbors who share a border with the shelter, a border now marked by this fence. And naturally, they were very concerned about the site for this shelter. But a public records request that we filed with the Joint Office of Homeless Services shows that there have been very few issues since the shelter opened in mid-June.
Before, we had folks who were worried about, folks coming in from other places. We had folks who were worried about noise and just, I think, some of the visibility issues. We hear those at a lot of our different shelter sites when we open shelter.
The records request shows one email about an issue with a shoplifter at a local plaid pantry right after the shelter opened. Shelter staff were able to identify the resident who is responsible, and he was removed from the shelter.
I think it says that the managers here have been very responsive to issues as they've come.
One couple whose house borders the shelter property has emailed with several complaints about noise and about having witnessed a drug deal blocks away from the shelter. The shelter is a low-barrier, all-men shelter, meaning that residents don't have to be drug-free. But facilities manager Avery Browning says they do remove residents who don't respect the site's neighbors.
It doesn't happen often, but we do now exit people if they're creating large commotions in the parking lot. We want to be the best neighbors we can, and if people are not willing to abide by those rules, then they cannot stay here.
Overall, Browning and Joint Office of Homeless Services spokesperson Dennis Thuralt say the shelter is a success. Some neighbors are even planning a barbecue for the shelter residents next month.
This is the first time I can recall neighbors coming to us and asking how to have an event and wanting to put resources into it, energy, time, passion. It was a wonderful conversation to be having.
I tried to reach out to the couple who had filed the complaints with the Joint Office of Homeless Services, but I haven't heard back. However, I did speak by phone today with a woman whose property shares a border with the shelter, and she runs a daycare from her home, so she had plenty of concerns before the shelter's opening. She said she's actually been pleasantly surprised. There have been no negative impacts to her business, and that this fence that was put up last month has made a huge difference for her. So far, so good at the Wy'east shelter in Mill Park. Reporting live in the Mill Park neighborhood in southeast Portland, Gabrielle Carroll, KOIN 6 News. Back to you.
Thanks for the follow.